Hello, this is Dr. Jerry Law, Director of Family Education and Leadership Training at Meadows Behavioral Healthcare. I'd like to thank you for taking a few minutes to watch this important video on what happens after your loved one leaves one of our programs. From the moment your friend or family member enters treatment, the clinical team will be considering next steps, which is often referred to as aftercare. The purpose of this video is to define the various levels of aftercare and the importance of your support. Now, this is by no means an all-encompassing examination of aftercare options, but rather an overview that we hope you'll find helpful. We realize that you may be anxious to know the next steps for your loved one. In reality, our clinical team does need some time to assess and evaluate the progress of each patient. As difficult as it may be for you right now, we encourage you to trust the process. So let's begin with a few definitions. Within the behavioral healthcare community, several different terms are frequently used to describe the levels of care available, and we realize this can be confusing. The level of care your loved one is currently receiving, assuming he or she is in one of our residential locations, is often referred to as primary care. If your loved one is receiving help at our outpatient center, please stay tuned, as I will speak to that shortly. For now, let's discuss the former, primary care. This typically takes place in a residential setting, such as our programs in Wickenburg. Insurance providers tend to refer to this level of care as either inpatient treatment or residential treatment. The differences primarily having to do with the level of medical care and staffing and/or the licensure of the facility and programs. For purposes of this video, both inpatient treatment and residential treatment will be referred to as primary care. This is generally the highest level of care other than a locked, secured facility, and primary care is very structured. Your loved one will have a schedule that begins around 6 a.m. and continues until lights out around 10 or 11 p.m. Now, this does not mean that your loved one is undergoing therapy at all times, but rather, treatment involves many therapeutic modalities during these times, as well as meals, time for recreation, and all-important time to complete assignments and have conversations with family members. Much more about what takes place on a daily basis in primary care is discussed in a subsequent video. Now, as mentioned, from the moment your loved one entered treatment, the clinical team is making observations and recommendations for aftercare. Aftercare is a bit of a catch-all phrase that describes what takes place after an individual is discharged from primary care. In reality, there are several levels of care that may be applicable to your loved one once he or she is discharged. So let's take a look at these. Following inpatient or residential treatment, and again, these are insurance-driven terms, the clinical team may recommend PHP, or Partial Hospitalization Program. Now, in most cases, this means that your friend or family member will still be receiving up to 10 or 12 hours of programming each day, but may live off-site from the facility. Some programs, such as Remuda Ranch, do offer on-site residence during PHP, while others may have arrangements with local housing options or may just leave the decision for housing completely up to the family. The goal at this level of care is to provide a safe and structured environment for therapeutic activities while not providing 24/7 supervision. This is often an important step for individuals who are still perhaps somewhat medically compromised, yet ready to begin the process of transitioning back to their lives outside of primary care. Another option you may be made aware of is referred to as extended care. In these programs, individuals are offered a residential setting that includes therapy but a much lower level than during primary care. By lower level, I'm not referring to quality but quantity. These programs may offer daily group therapy, weekly individual therapy, medical and/or psychiatric care as needed, along with group activities. As a consumer, you'll need to ask a lot of questions of the program, and they should be able to provide you a sample schedule of what a day or a week in their program looks like. The advantage of this program is that it does offer structure, safety, random drug testing if applicable, while also encouraging your loved one to take on responsibilities of daily life, such as housekeeping, meal preparation, laundry, and in many cases are encouraged or even required to have outside employment. There are no hard and fast rules regarding the amount of programming offered by these programs, so it will behoove you to ask many questions if this is the type of care that you're supporting for your loved one. Your family member or you may also receive recommendations for an intensive outpatient program, or IOP. Now, these programs do not include a residential option. However, many IOPs partner with sober living homes that cater to specific populations. These sober living homes are typically gender specific and are often designed around clients who are recovering from specific disorders. Intensive outpatient programs typically offer 3 to 6 hours of programming 3 to 5 days per week. Most IOPs offer both day and evening sessions, allowing clients to work. Depending on how an individual does in primary treatment, the team may recommend an IOP coupled with living at home and attendance at support groups such as 12-step meetings. Once again, you'll need to ask many questions, and our continuing care coordinators will be able to provide you much of the information you need as you research this option. Now, a word about the Meadows Outpatient Center. We are very proud to have developed what we believe to be one of the finest outpatient programs in the country. Located in Scottsdale, Arizona, our outpatient center offers therapies such as neurofeedback, EMDR, somatic experiencing, and others typically only found at the primary care level. In addition, continuity of care is a highlight. Staff at the Meadows Outpatient Center are all trained in the Meadows model, and your loved one will not face a lengthy adjustment period when transitioning from primary care to our intensive outpatient program, thus assuring you of maximum therapeutic value. You can learn more by visiting this website, www.themeadowsiop.com. I know Executive Director Jim Corrington would be delighted to hear from you. Another level of aftercare is referred to as outpatient care. Now, this may involve regular, often weekly appointments with outpatient providers such as therapists, registered dietitians, psychiatric providers, medical providers, and others. This level of care is typically most appropriate after your loved one has completed both primary care and an intensive outpatient program. A patient's clinical team will be well positioned to make recommendations for these levels of care based on his or her medical, psychiatric, and therapeutic progress while under our care. Now, quickly, a few thoughts about sober living. Sober living is really not a level of clinical care. Rather, as the name suggests, it's a place where your loved one can reside in early recovery that provides structure and support during this critical time. There's no regulatory definition for sober living, so you are well advised to look only at programs that come highly recommended by the primary care and/or intensive outpatient programs with which you and your loved ones are working. At minimum, you want to know that a sober house manager is in residence, that random drug screens are required if applicable, and that participation in regular support groups is mandatory. Reputable sober living homes will gladly provide you with multiple references for you to contact. Do the research. It'll pay off in the end. So what about support groups? Well, we are firm believers that since we all live in community, the best way to maintain recovery and wellness is also in community. The good news is that support groups are abundantly available. Even if you live in a remote area, online support groups are available. Whether your loved one prefers a 12-step program, a faith-based support group such as Celebrate Recovery, a group such as Rational Recovery, or others, what truly matters is that we do not attempt to achieve and maintain wellness and recovery in a vacuum. Nothing is as powerful as being in fellowship with other individuals who get it. Now, I readily admit my bias towards 12-step programs due to my own personal experiences in recovery, as well as the fact that these programs enjoy an 80-year history of supporting millions around the world. Support group attendance will be an integral part of your loved one's long-term success, and you may find some help for yourself in these programs as well. Finally, what if your loved one is balking at or refusing the aftercare recommendations being presented by the clinical team? We also know that financial and family realities may make accepting these recommendations impractical as well. So what do you do in such cases? As I share in another video, regardless of the realities of finances and family matters, it is critical, no, it is imperative that family members send a consistent message of love, care, and concern to their loved one completing one of our programs. While the wording needs to sound like you, the message needs to say the following: I love you, and I will support wellness and recovery, and right now, that means that you complete the treatment where you are. And I will support the recommendations of your clinical team. And I will support you in long-term recovery. And here's the hard one: I will not support anything else. I hope you noticed that the word but is not included in that sentence. This is not about threats or maybes. This is about letting your loved one know that you love them enough for them to be very unhappy with you and in the place they need to be, receiving the level of care that is appropriate, rather than very happy with you because you went along with their plan. Not easy at all, but truly what is necessary at this time.